Hey, what do you need to know? February's retail. Where are things at? What's going to be on the hype? What's going to be on the hotness? What do you need to know? Let's do it. Let's talk through it. Let's show you what's going to be on your radar and what's going to be on other people's radar. And so that you can figure out whether or not any of these are right for you. Because again, going right up head to head versus crowdfunding, right? Like you have your shopping cart of your retail side of things, and then you've got your pre-launches and your launches and your campaigns and your pledges over here. Which one? How should you spend your money? Let me just show you what's on the radar so you can make the best decisions for you. Let's do this. Now, there's gonna be a few on this list that you recognize. There's gonna be a few on this list that you don't recognize, but are going to make some waves. And that's why I want to tell you about them, because they may not already have done it, but they're going to. First up, we're talking about ISS Vanguard. ISS Vanguard is coming to retail. ISS Vanguard is at retail right now. Do you need it? Should you get it? Open world, spacefaring, BSG, more campaign narrative game from Awakened Realms, right? Like, they're definitely going more of the less CMON route and more of the retail route, which is nice. At the same time, they are still very expensive at retail. And that's why I will continually say, if you want an Awakened Realms game, the best value is going to be on the campaign. But if you don't want to get burned by a Awakened Realms game because it's not for you, because it's not any good, because the production, is going to be super top notch either way, you're better off waiting for retail. And now that you know you can get a lot of this stuff at retail, there's some serious thought about whether or not you should do it that way. And if you're like me and you always do one wave shipping and you get everything late, and I'm always behind on the hype and the hotness, and you can beat me and you can go get a copy from any sort of online store at this very time. The other one that I sort of talked about a few months ago as well, but it's now actually more have got my eye because it's more widely available, is Isle of Skye. I love Isle of Skye, and this is the big box expansion. The reason that this one is cool from Lookout Games is that this one has just the Druids expansion as well as additional modular expansion, which is basically little borderlands that are adaptable either way, compatible with any of the expansions. And so if the price point is good for this and you don't have Isle of Skye, this is one of my favorite tile laying games of all time. I have a copy with no expansions and I'm very happy with it. I should get the Druids expansion one of these times, or frankly speaking, I should just buy the big box and, trade away or sell this on the cheap for like $20, because I am that big of a fan of this game. And the fact that they sort of didn't include the other expansion, the other no-named expansion that people aren't as quite a big a fan of, in the big box version really tells you all you need to know from that aspect. Going back for a second, the one thing I want to say as a post note on ISS Vanguard, it's got an 8.9 rating on Board Game Geek. Now, is that selection bias? Is that most of the people that are agreeing crowdfunding? That's a lot better rating than the other Awakened Realms games. And so the interesting point was, I didn't really see it on a whole lot of top 10 lists though either, right? It's kind of weird. Anyway, dichotomy there. I diverge. Anyway, let's go back. What else do you need to know? Agricola, the 15-year anniversary edition. And we're talking about this one because I thought it was going to make more waves, but when you've already got a revised edition from 2016, you've got a bunch of other little expansion things, right? Like 15 years is sort of an odd date. And on the Board Game Geek right now, it's getting railed. It's getting absolutely railed. It's got a 6.3 rating. People are like, well, if the game's an 8 overall, again, selection bias, but the box is trash and the components and the production is not good and the box is ugly as all get out. So, take that for what you will. But if you don't have an Agricola, this might be the anniversary box for you. Maybe not. Maybe go look elsewhere, but I thought I'd mention it. Next up, we have Planet B. I'd never heard of this one, but beware. There's actually 2 games called Planet B. One came out in 2022. One is marketed as 2023. But this is the Hansam Gluck version. And this is a worker placement with voting and open market style of game where you're a corrupt governor, right? I've never heard of such a thing. Talk about fantasy, but you're making crooked deals with corporations to advance your own interest, right? Like that is clearly fantasy and not based on anything at all going on with our current civilization or structure. Anyway, you're building a city, population getting to work for you, playing off the political factions, and it's going to come at a price, and you want to become the president. That doesn't sound at all similar. Hitting a little bit too close from home. It's got 7.3 on Board Game Geek. And there's only 200 ratings though, so check it out. It's going to be interesting. I think this one's flying under the radar. It's a little bit heavier. It's about a 3.3 rating as well from the weight, but check it out. The next one we're talking about is Bot Factory. This is Eagle Griffin Games. It's a sort of light, if you will, essentially. Kanban light is what I heard it described as, especially on the crowdfunding campaign. But not only are the crowdfunding backers getting it, you're also getting now the retail side of things. And so that's going to be the question of, do you need it? Do you need a lighter version? Are you liking a lighter version? Again, 7.8 rating, with 188 ratings on Board Game Geek at the time of me filming this. And you're just fulfilling contracts as you're basically assembling bots in a factory, meeting goals and improving the values of the bots as you go along. I don't know in terms of the drafting, tile placement, worker placement, if this is something that is probably even maybe along my scale of weight, because it's only a 2.6, which is probably something I could handle. But again, like, it just didn't do anything for me. It didn't grab me. And I've heard mixed opinions since it's been at retail. So I think if you're looking for something to gateway in, that this might be a good one to see or to test your toes in the water. If you like this sort of thing. So give it a look-see. Don't know how to pronounce this one, but Gigamike is putting out another Q-based game, Qawale. Either way, it's a nice abstract with wooden pieces that I'm super intrigued by. And I think it has real potential to be a fly under the radar hit. There are many, many abstract games that are coming out nowadays, but true abstracts with no theme are harder and harder to appeal to our cosmetically challenged or non-cosmetically challenged eyes, I should say, on a routine basis. The concept is relatively simple of this game. You have colors and pebbles of 3 different kinds, and so you're going to be placing the neutral ones in the corners, and you're going to be trying to manage pebbles across the way as you go. And as you have your 8 pebbles in your color, you're going to be adding a pebble to the top of a stack before you move it, and then you're trying to get essentially tic-tac-toe 4 in a row looking top down. A little bit of talk-esque vibe there as well. As someone who loves talk, that's why this one is heavily on my radar, and I'm super interested to see if it actually holds up. So we haven't had too many of those classic abstract games. There is a new GIP game coming out. That's a whole nother video, though. We'll talk about that in the Hype and Hotness video. But if you're a GIP fan like I am, you should be super intrigued by that because it's by the GIP designer. Anyway, next. Now we have Plaid Hat. Plaid Hat is coming back into it with something new, not just a Summoner Wars 2, which reminds me I need to play that more and get more expansions for it, but Hickory Dickory Dock. The mouse ran up the clock, right? I mean, that's the old nursery rhyme that you're used to hearing, and what they've done is they've created a board game off of it. You've got mouse competing in a scavenger hunt inside a cuckoo clock. I mean, who didn't think that was ever going to be a board game? Because that sounds awesome. Tile placement, set collection, end game bonuses with an open market. You are going to ride the cuckoo clock's hand as it goes around searching for items that match the hunt cards that you have. You're going to jump off to collect items and then perform actions that are going to help you get victory points, which are in the form of berries. You have a hunt card that you're going to be basically trying to bingo, is what it sounds like. And then at midnight, when the game ends, you present it to the boss, and whoever has the most points wins, depending on rows, columns, and everything else in between. So Plaid Hat's, put some stuff out there, and I give them a lot of credit. And so I would be, pleasantly surprised to pick up a copy of this at some point in the future and try it out, because it's not really, worker placement, but it's more a little bit of those other things managed along with it. And that appeals to me. That vibe of combination of mechanics, not too many though, that's my big fear, could really be appealing. So there you go. Next up, Frostpunk. Frostpunk is finally coming to retail because it's just been getting to backers as well in the last month or so. And so we're going to see what this video game turned board game is actually going to entail. I looked at this when it was on crowdfunding and I said, this looks like a solo player game done multi-handed. There's like 12 different rounds or phases that you're having to do each single round. There's a lot of upkeep. They deluxified the heck out of it with some of those miniatures. And so some of that I think is more exclusive. But we're going to see, because Glass Cannon Unplugged also has another project upcoming, the Dying Light video game that is being ported, and there's very, very little, next to no information coming out about that right now. That's still in the design element. So we're going to see how this stands up at the test of time at retail, because it's got an 8.2 rating from backers right now, but is it going to be as good? I mean, it reminds me of This War of Mine, if you will, like a game that, sounds good in my head, but has not necessarily the table factor that I can necessarily get it played to. Again, especially that was my problem with like Trudvang or even like Etherfields. Like you can sort of quarterback those a lot more, and that was my fear with this one as well, which I think, if you're looking at a 1 to 2 player with this game, I think it would be very, very solid. At 3 to 4, I would worry about the long lasting. Would I be able to get it to the table? Is it a little bit too AP and just time consuming? But I mean, you know, it's by the creators of this War of Mine originally, so you know that's why it also gets tied in there regardless on the tabletop as well. So yeah, I mean, it's post-apocalyptic, Ice Age, and you're trying to survive. And there's going to be different ways to adapt, mitigate, and change the scenarios every single game. So it's more like Return to the Dark Tower in that sense of how much adaptability and difference between game to game. And that's probably the other biggest selling point. And so if you like this sort of thing, I think you should probably check it out because it may be one of the better ones of the year. It's just probably going to be completely hit or miss, depending on your mileage may vary, right? So, but can you play a game like this for 3 hours? That's going to be the question. Now, that actually has a rating of like over 4 on Board Game Geek. So that's probably too heavy for me unless people are just rating it that heavy. Now, next up, we're going to stay with the other heavy games and we're going to go a slightly different direction from Ludo Nova, which has more of a heavier feel in a shorter time frame. And this is Sabika. Sabika is a 1 to 4 player game with a rondel. No, a true rondel. Chris actually knows what he's talking about this time because as you have here, you have a rondel, but not just one rondel. You have 3 rondels that are, you know, sort of around in this circular shaped board. And it just looks like an intriguing concept. And it looks different than a lot of the other worker placement, resource management style games that we've seen in the last year or two. And it's got these interconnections between each of the rondels, which is going to focus on a different component. Construction of the building of Alhambra, and then you have the carving of poems, and then the exporting of goods. And all of this is going to be taking place over 5 separate rounds. And that's how long you have to play. So is this going to be stand up? I mean, it says only 1 to 2 hours. So, you know, if by the time you get to play this, you know, could you get it down to 60 or 75 minutes? And that's actually impressive if this got a little bit of weight to it, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, because that's my big fear with any of these games, especially as someone who's looking to dip their toes into them the first time or two. So we're going to see this one is slowly trickling out to North America right now, and you should have on your radar as people potentially looking at it from the next big Euro style game. Then we're going to go completely other direction. We're going to go over to Fantasy Flight Games, and we have the next upcoming expansion packs for Marvel Champions. Dun, 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 dun. Rogue and Gambit. Rogue and Gambit are finally coming out, and we're going to see if they stand the test of the time with the other X-Men that have already been put out that already people are loving. Wolverine, Storm, they say those two are some of the most fantastic, innovative designs, maybe not innovative, but fantastic character designs that they've seen in the recent past, and it just seems to be going up and up and up and better and better and better. And so I've seen a couple people, even though it's not supposed to be out until the end of the month, already get charged, they said, in terms of some of their credit cards pre-orders. So if you are a Marvel Champion fan, you may want to give those a look-see and whether or not you can get them available before, if some of the pre-orders are actually arriving and shipping early. So is it going to be a make it or break it? What else are we going to see? Nothing else has been announced for Marvel Champions. That is as far as, I mean, unless you're data mining in advance that I know of. So tell me in the comment section if I'm wrong and what else is out there. I think there's talk of, like, you know, sort of a Luke Cage Iron Fist coming, but I really hope they stick the whole 2023 with X-Men, because X-Men are my favorite. See Marvel United. Then we are also getting a new expansion for the Classic 7 Wonders, the 2nd edition, and this is a remaking of the original expansion Battle, and this is Edifice. So essentially in this game, you're going to be cooperating to build these edifices or buildings through ages 1, 2, and 3. And you get to choose a card at random. It's placed face up, and you get participation markers. And so if you participate, you get a great bonus. But if you don't complete it, I mean, you don't have to participate. If you don't complete it as a whole, everyone's going to take a penalty. So that adding another interesting dynamic of forcing you to cooperate with this otherwise drafting, you know, solitaire-esque multiplayer game. Completely compatible with any edition, they say. As well, there are going to be 2 other two-sided wonders, one that can be used with the expansion and one that can be used with the base game alone. 7 Wonders Battle is not considered one of the better expansions when we look back. I mean, it's 2014, so it's not that long ago, almost a decade though, good gracious. But it's got a 6.9 rating, so it's definitely not one of the higher rated expansions for it. But that was adding 2 separate modules that you could use either separately or together. So will this do better? I mean, I've never played 2nd edition. I don't really know too much of the differences, but hopefully it's better, but how much better? Well, your mileage may vary again. So that's it. That's the interesting titles that are coming to retail over the next couple weeks. As always, I mean, let me know if you like the retail side of things. I like talking about games. So, I mean, I don't really care where they're coming from or who's making them. So, yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe. We are so close to 7K. We're inching towards it. And if you want to win some games, help me give them away. So there you go. That's all I got. Stay classy. See you around. Tell your friends. Thanks, guys.